To part one of the review for the radical assessment. We're going to be going through adding and subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and then multiplying binomials. So there will be 4 parts, I think that was. So this is part one, adding and subtracting radicals. So first thing we need to remember about adding and subtracting radicals is we treat radicals much like variables. So if we saw something like x plus x, we know that we would combine their coefficients, which would make 2x. So if we had 3y plus 5y, since the variables are the same, we look at their coefficients and we combine them. 5 plus 3 makes 8y. Notice the y doesn't become squared because we're not multiplying them. The common mistake here is that students think that the radicals come out of the house. That is not the case. When we're adding, we're just combining their coefficients. So when we have rad 3 plus rad 3, the coefficients are 1. So this makes 2 rad 3. If we had something, let's do this first. If we have 3 rad 5 plus 7 rad 5, we see that the radicals are the same. So we're going to look at their coefficients. Coefficients of both those radicals are 3 and 7. So if we combined 3 and 7, that makes 10 rad 5. We look at this other one that was next, and we have rad 3 plus rad 6. We need to see that those are unlike radicals. So those cannot be combined. That is simplified. That would be the answer. It would be much like if we saw x plus y. Those are also unlike. So we would not be able to simplify those either. If we have 8 rad 6 minus 8 rad 6, we have like radicals, so we can combine their coefficients. The coefficients of both of these radicals are 8 and negative 8. 8 minus 8 is 0, so we would know that this would simplify to 0, not 0 rad 6. Remember, the coefficient is multiplying that radical. So when we see 8 rad 6, that's sort of, it's not sort of, it is 8 times rad 6, and we can multiply those two. But then we have terms. So we have 2 terms here. 1 term, 2 terms. We can combine these terms because they have like radicals. When we combine things, we combine their coefficients. In this example, we look and we see that they are unlike. However, we still have to be cognizant that we might be able to simplify. So we always want to look to see if we can simplify. Can we simplify either of these radicals? And when we see rad 24, we look to break it up. We want to break up rad 24. Does 24 have any factors that are perfect squares? So factors of 24 are 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. 1, 24, not a perfect square. 2, 12, not perfect squares. 3, 8, not perfect squares. However, 4 is a perfect square. So we know that we would be able to break rad 24 into rad 4, rad 6. Rad 4 is a perfect square. So we would write that as 2 rad 6 minus rad 6. And now we see that those are like terms. Since they're like terms, meaning they have the same radical, rad 6 and rad 6, we're going to combine their coefficients. Coefficient is 2 and negative 1. So we think, what is 2 minus 1? 2 minus 1 is 1. So my answer is going to be rad 6. So we have to be careful about those. When they look like they're unlike, we want to definitely make sure that those radicals have been simplified before we say that it's combined. So if we look at this one that we first saw that were unlike, rad 3 can't be simplified and rad 6 cannot be simplified. You would not, yes, rad 6 can be written as rad 2, rad 3, but rad 2 is not a perfect square. We always want to combine integers in front of the in front of the radical, the coefficient. It can't be irrational, and rad 2 would be irrational. You can have decimals, you can have fractions as coefficients, but you can't have irrational numbers like rad 2. That can't be simplified. So let's take a couple of these and let's do them together first. So number 1, we first look to see, are they like terms? Yes, they are like terms. They both have the same radical. At that point, we look at their coefficients, -3 and -1. -3 and -1 will make -4. And then we keep the radical. Much like we would keep the variable, we keep the radical. Radical stays the same. We just have -3 of these things and -1 of these things. So if you have -3 in your 3 and -1, that makes -4 of those particular things. Number 2, we want to look. We see that it's rad 6 and rad 6. We look at their coefficients, -1, +3. And this time, -1 and +3 makes 2 rad 6. Rad 6 cannot be simplified. There's no perfect square that we can of the factors of 6. Number 3, we look and we first initially see, hey, rad 8 and rad 18 are not like terms. Those are not the same radicals. However, we have to remember, can we simplify? And yes, we can in fact simplify rad 8 to rad 4, rad 2. Remember, we're looking for factors that are perfect squares. 4 is a perfect square. So I can simplify that. And 3 times 2 is 6. So 3 rad 8 simplifies to 6 rad 2. And then we look at rad 18. And rad 18 also has a perfect square as one of its factor pairs. 9 times 2. 9 is a perfect square. So this becomes 3 times 3 rad 2. -3 times 3 is -9 rad 2. And now we see, actually, they are like terms. They both have the same radical. So we're going to combine their coefficients. 6 and -9 makes -3 rad 2. 2 rad 54 plus 3 rad 6, they look like they're unlike terms. And now we're going to see if we can simplify. And rad 54 has rad 9, rad 6. And rad 9 is a perfect square, so 2 times 3 times rad 6 makes 6 rad 6. We have our other term, 3 rad 6, cannot be simplified. So we'll bring that down, and then we see that those are actually like terms. They have the same radical, rad 6 and rad 6. So we look at their coefficients, and we would get 9 rad 6. Now 9 is a perfect square, but we don't take the square root of 9 because it's not inside of a radical. Another common mistake that students typically make. What I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to try these 4 problems and see if you can simplify those. And what I would do is pause this video right at the moment. I'm going to try to find out how I can pause it because I don't think I can. I think I can only stop it. So, let's go here and see if I can pause it. Nope, I cannot. File. Nope. And I'm going to have to stop it. So, first time doing this. So, there will be another video next for you to look at the answers. Now that you've unpaused it, let's take a look at the answers. We have the answers for number 1 is 8 rad 6. We see that we broke up rad 54 into rad 9 rad 6, simplified rad 9 to 3, multiplied those. 3 times 3 equals 9, and then we have like terms. Number 2, same thing, breaking rad 54 into rad 9 rad 6, which gives us a final answer of -4 rad 6. Number 3, breaking rad 8, and number 4, breaking rad 20 down. So you're just checking your answers at this point. Let's look at these 2. Now we have 3 terms that we're adding. I would pause it, try those 2 problems, and then play when you're ready to see the answers. Answers to problems number 1 and 2, 5 rad 2, and -2 rad 6. Next page. Here's 2 more. Again, pause the video, try those 2 problems, and then push play to see the answers. The answers to these 2 problems, -30 rad 2, and in number 2 is an interesting one, is we simplify and we come up with 2 terms that are unlike. So -6 rad 5 plus 14 rad 6. Doesn't matter which one comes first. When you have radicals, there is no standard form or reason one would come in front of the other. So hopefully this helps you with adding and subtracting. Good luck, and let me know. Email me if you have specific questions, or come in to be on Zoom for the office hours with questions. Thanks.